This video I'm making for a friend, but I figured I would make a video so if anybody else wants to do impromptu debating, they can have the tools to make a good case. This will actually be leaning into the first affirmative constructive speech, which is like, you're the one talking about making change. So it's going to help out with that. We're going to start off with speaking tips and tricks, and then we're going to get into the actual thing. To start off, in a debate, you're not trying to convince your fellow debater on something, you are trying to convince the judge. So look to the judge. Secondly, avoid filler words. Make sure every word you say is of importance. And what you can do instead of using filler words is taking the time to pause. This will allow you to think through some stuff so then you are able to come up with your point clearly. Last speaking tip, if you are struggling with your words, if like mess up or something, just roll with it. Keep going on. Don't put much attention to it. If you put attention to it, they're going to notice. If not, likelihood they're not going to notice. Now, when it comes to actually speaking, there are some habits that I had to overcome, and that was to sway and fidget. Like, oftentimes when I would stand, I would go woo, woo, woo. And that was distracting. And also my hand movements were distracting. You don't want to be blah, 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 blah. Now you should make sure that you have very intentional hand movements used to emphasize your points. Now I'm doing an impromptu debate case on tariffs. I started 5 minutes ago. I started out with making a list of quotes. Not too many and not specific to the topic, so you can utilize it wherever. Next is going to be collecting evidence. Okay, so I finished getting the evidence together. It took about 15 minutes to get 2 pieces of evidence. However, I would recommend that if you're going into an actual debate to have more. As a general thing, I would recommend having 4 pieces, then you move on, and then if you have more time, to research more. Additionally, during this time, you should see what are the arguments against your case, and think about how you would respond to that. So, now that I got the evidence for what I'm saying, how I'm going to talk against the arguments against what I'm saying, and some generalized quotes, it is time for me to form my first affirmative constructive. Graham Alcott once said, quote, "Great decision-making comes from the ability to create the time and space to think rationally and intelligently about the issue at hand." And I agree with this quote wholeheartedly, that in order to make effective decisions, we need to think critically and we need to do the research so that we could properly respond to the issue at hand. Now, what is the issue at hand? For that, I'm going to talk about the resolution, which is more tariffs should be implemented within the United States. Tariffs is a very hot topic of discussion. There are people saying yes and people saying no. There are advantages and disadvantages according to some. However, there are disadvantages within the status quo. And I would like to point out harm 1, which is that large unemployment numbers are within the United States. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, quote, both the unemployment rate at 4.2% and the number of unemployed people at 7.1 million changed little in March, end quote. 7.1 million people do not have jobs. That is very concerning. And additionally, something that goes right in hand with that is the second harm, which is the cost of goods is too high without the wages to match. The Federal Reserve puts the goal for inflation rate to be at 2%. The U.S. inflation calculator reports the average per year over the last 4 years to be above 2%. Starting in 2021, the percentage of inflation goes as follows: 4.7%, 8%, 4.1%, and 2.9%. These numbers are astonishingly high, and it's very concerning because with the high unemployment and costs being too high, people are struggling. Now, how do we go about solving these problems? For that, I say we implement 20% tariffs on all things we can make in the country. The thing that I like about this plan is that for the stuff that we cannot make in our country, they can still be imported at the usual tariff rates that we see now. But with all the things that we can make in the country, we can start being a country of adults. Our country does not need to be a 6-year-old crying because mommy and daddy hasn't brought in the water and the food from other countries yet. Now, with the hot topic of tariffs, we need to look at some advantages. And according to Supply Chain Today and Faster Capital, I've counted 6 advantages. The first advantage is better protection for U.S. businesses. Both sources point out tariffs protect domestic businesses. From Faster Capital, quote, by making imported goods more expensive, domestic producers can compete more effectively and maintain their market share, end quote. U.S. businesses will have the opportunity to grow now that they're no longer competing with other countries which utilize cheap labor. Now, additionally, with the U.S. companies growing, we go into advantage 2, more jobs available. Quote, higher tariffs may protect existing jobs in domestic manufacturing and other sectors, preventing them from being outsourced to countries with lower labor costs. That was said from Supply Chain Today. They list out a few other job types that would see growth as well, such as logistics, retail, and services. All of these things are jobs that the unemployed people, the 7.1 unemployed people, can access. They will be able to have the chance to earn money again, to become the adult instead of that 6-year-old mentioned earlier. Additionally, we have advantage 3, more revenue. From Faster Capital, quote, tariffs can generate revenue for governments. This revenue can be used to fund public services and infrastructure projects, end quote. I think by earning more money, by charging other countries more, that is a great way to raise income for ours, especially hand in hand with the other 2 advantages. But we're not done yet because we still got 3 more advantages to go. Advantage 4 is that there's more local innovation and investment. From Supply Chain Today, quote, tariffs can encourage domestic companies to innovate and improve their products or services in order to remain competitive in a protected market. With fewer foreign alternatives, companies may be more motivated to invest in research and development and improve their offerings to attract customers. Hey, better products for customers, better companies for the US. Sounds like a win-win for me. Additionally, there's advantage 5, which is leveling the international playing field. From Faster Capital, quote, tariffs can be used to address unfair trade practices such as dumping. Dumping occurs when foreign producers sell goods in a foreign market at a price that is lower than the cost of production. This can harm domestic producers and workers, end quote. By tariffs preventing that from happening and creating more jobs within our country, we are creating an advantage that levels the international playing field. The last advantage is that there will be additional security. From Supply Chain Today, quote, some industries such as defense, energy, or telecommunications are critical for national security. By imposing tariffs on foreign imports in these sectors, countries can ensure that they maintain self-sufficiency and reduce reliance on foreign powers in key areas. There are 6 advantages that will overcome the 2 harms in the status quo. Great decision-making comes from the ability to create the time and space to think rationally and intelligently about the issue at hand. Tariffs is a very hot topic, but when I see 2 harms in the status quo and 6 advantages by bringing things back to our country, by becoming adults who does things for ourselves, I see that as a win-win. I now stand open for cross-examination and questions of further clarification. This is what I was reading from. And with that, I was able to make a 7-minute speech. From start to finish, this took about an hour and a half. If you have additional time, I would encourage you to look into other sources and get more evidence, especially to combat the arguments against your case. In which case, I would like to talk about mine. I tried to emphasize this within the first speech, but one of them is to just do things yourself. And this applies not only just on the business level, but also on the personal level. You can invest in growing your own plants and growing your own food. There are alternatives from buying from other countries. Whew, that being said, my brain is all mush now, so I'm going to wrap up the video here, and I hope this was helpful for everyone, and I hope you guys have a blessed day.